Good morning, Gamecock fans. JC Shurburtt here with you. This is Coffee on Tuesday, February 2nd, the year of our Lord 2025. Good to be with you this morning. I am taping this on regular schedule. So I do know the result of the Super Bowl and all that. We talked it yesterday on the show. Kind of a nice free flowing show with Phil and myself yesterday. Hangover Monday is what we call it. But back in the saddle, crack of dawn, bringing you Gamecocks, your morning fix of Gamecock football, mostly right here on Coffee. What I want to talk about today, is the transfer portal class that's inbound. They're all there. I don't think there's anybody in the portal class. There's not that isn't already there and working. So the question becomes, with the transfer portal, who's going to start, who's going to help, what's going to be the deal. Ideally, if you have open positions, you're going to want most of your portal additions that are older to start, because you just want older players to start. That's kind of what coaches want. It's not always going to be that way. Obviously, you evaluate it the best you can. I think this staff under Coach Beamer and they've done a good job evaluating the transfer portal. I think there's been very few players they've brought in through the portal that you go, well, that guy is just not that good. It's just a miss. And believe it or not, there are misses that happen in the portal these days with different schools at different places. Some guys have outstanding reps before they get there, and they're big time recruits, and you get them on campus. It's like, I know why the other staff wasn't playing him. Sometimes a player doesn't fit into the new place. Sometimes the player can't handle what's going on off the field. I think the couple of guys that have not been good portal additions, a lot of them have been off the field. Some not. I mean, there are a couple of offensive linemen in 2023 that kind of had to cobble together that weren't good enough. But for the most part, there's some that couldn't get with the program, and they had to leave, so to speak. But so it's normally one of those things where at least you want your players to be in the two deep, I think. And so I've divided everybody up into tiers. We're going to go through it player by player, and I'm going to put them in tiers. Tiers are a good thing. I got this idea from one of our editors at 24/7 Sports. So I guess some folks have done written tiers for portal editions. Some of those are like, oh, well, this guy's good, this guy's not good. I think if you take a player out of the transfer portal and you're a college football program, they're all good, right? They're all good players. Now, they're different levels of immediate impact, right? So in other words, a guy like Aaron Nolan or a guy like Jaylen Brown, he's not going to be as impactful, most likely, on your season, barring injury, as maybe a player like Justin Okoronkwo, where there's open positions within the two deep at linebacker, or Gabriel Brownlow-Dendy at linebacker, at defensive tackle. We talked about the D tackles at the end of last week. Travian Robertson and his group, and there's open jobs there. You squeeze a guy like Brandon Cisse is probably one of the better players in the transfer portal, but where would he be in terms of starting? Is he too? Because you get down to this with one open spot in the secondary, and it's not the spot he plays. He's more of a corner or a nickel. So you got one open spot in the secondary. So where is he? Where is he going to fit in? He would almost, to be projected as a starter right now, one of three things has to happen. I'll take injuries off the table. Let's take injuries off the table. Either Kilgore will have to move back to safety, and thus making the nickel job open, or he'll have to beat out O'Donnell Fortune. I'm sorry, no, O'Donnell Fortune. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. He'll have to beat out Judge Collier, Vicari, Swain, Miles Norwood to start at corner. I don't know necessarily that that's a given. Just to be honest, if you do that, I think he could. So that's a tier. That's a should be in the two deep. So what we're going to do, we're going to do A, B, C with these tiers. And keep in mind, they're all good. If it's a C, that means it's not a good player. That usually probably means player has a lot of eligibility left, a long runway. There's players coming back at his position that have proven themselves within the program. So it's a little bit more of a challenge to win the job. And in some cases, a lot more. So you just kind of got to look at it like that. You D end. We talked about edge last week. There's one open spot to be a starter. Now, to be in the two deep, there's a lot of open spots. So we'll see sort of how it all shakes out. But this is just one man's opinion on the tiers. And we're going to go player by player and kind of break those down here on coffee. First, I do want to tell you about our sponsor, Encapsulate USA, encapsulateusa.com. Mike Morgan kind of got me involved with these guys. They do mushroom health supplements, and boy, I feel really good. I got to be honest. I've tried supplements before, this, that, and the other, and these mushroom supplements, the work, they do the trick. I was surprised. Like I've told this story on the show, out of medication, uh, doctors and pharmacists. I mean, I don't know why it takes that long these days. I guess that's the Spartanburg coming out in me. You know, you used to be able to just call the doctor. Hey, Dr. Smith, could you call this in? Sure, I'll get on it right away. Now it's like a 2-day process. So anyway, I'd gotten these samples from Encapsulate in the mail and took them. And boy, you talk about mental clarity, and there's a lot of benefit to it. At least it works for me. Everybody's body chemistry is different, but if you're looking for something to kind of help you, an all natural supplement, go to encapsulateusa.com. I almost said UCLA. Encapsulateusa.com. Use code JCM, all capitals, to get $10 off, free shipping over $60. Encapsulateusa.com. Proud sponsor of coffee, of the JC Morgan Show podcast, all of our shows here, and me. So thank you. Thank you for patronizing the businesses that support us here at Chief Sports South Carolina. So I wanted to tell you about that real quick and get that out of the way so you could hit the fast forward button and all that good stuff. No ads. We don't have very many. We don't have ad breaks here on coffee, and that's good because in the morning, it's the last thing I want to hear is a bunch of crazy commercials, right? If I'm trying to hear people talk about ball. So, you know, we're going to divide these guys up into tiers and start with Brandon Cisse. Amazingly, I mentioned him and I wrote him down first. Of course, Brandon, it was a corner nickel at NC State. Pretty significant battle for him to bring him back home with Ole Miss and Florida also in the mix. He's from Sumter. You know that by now. Bigger player, physical, can also play special teams. I'm still going to go with him as an A. And all right, so let's reset the board because I talked through that commercial in there, and let's just reset it. So tier A is going to be should start. It's going to be a should, could. Should, could. That's kind of a train vocal exercise theater class, or maybe kindergarten. I don't know. So A is going to be should start. In other words, give yourself a little wiggle room because he may not, and it is going to be interesting to see if he can, but should start. And there are very few A's. This doesn't mean the other guys aren't good. It's just A projection should start. I think CC is going to be too good to keep off the field. That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? But the kid, they're going to replace one kid from Sumter, one person from Sumter with another in the secondary. So I'm going to go with him there. I just think he's too versatile, too physical, again, too good to not be in the starting lineup once Carolina starts August 31st against Virginia Tech in Atlanta. That's me, my opinion. Could be wrong, but not apologizing. I think he's that good. The next guy, Devontae Miles, big 6'4", 285, Bowling Green, D tackle, D lineman, so to speak, because I don't know that he couldn't be that Tonka Hemingway type of guy that can play some edge, athletic, not a player that started at Bowling Green, but stranger things have happened. as far as starting at your new place, development takes time. Like his hand, like everything about him athletically. Would like to see more film of him taking on a double team inside, smashing some heads, that kind of thing. It's what you want with your D lineman. I'm not saying he's soft. I'm just saying I haven't seen it. The film that's out there is a lot of good athletic plays and things like that, good athleticism. But the football part of it, I haven't seen physicality. I'm sure he's physical. I just, we'll see. But he's a tier C, which means should be in the two deep. Can't guarantee Miles will be in the two deep. Just because the what ifs with D tackles, like we talked about. What if Hardy's really good? What if freshman Caleb Williams is surprisingly ready to go? What if Brownlow Dindy? You got Barrett there, you got Goodwine. It could be hard to get in the two deep, but they rotate six, so he'll be part of the rotation. There probably should be a three deep at D tackle, just to be honest. But so tier C is could be in the two deep. So tier A is should be a starter. Tier B is should be in the two deep. C is could be in the two deep. So should, could, right there. Justin Okoronkwo. The more I hear about him, the more I think he'll start. And look, sometimes Clayton White will throw a fast one by yours truly, or surprisingly enough, like with who plays where, because his linebacker is a little different. Like normally, you think Mike linebacker, you think guy in the middle. Sometimes he's not the best sideline to sideline guy, but he's kind of a thumper, patrols the box. And that's not always the case. I mean, the Mike sometimes is different than the Will, and they're both inside linebacker spots. So I'm assuming he's going to play opposite Fred Johnson, because I don't know that I'd say he'd start over Fred. So I'm assuming, and as long as I'm correct, he's like Fred Johnson was behind Debo Williams this year, so at the Will. See, it's a little different, right? I'm pretty sure that was the Will. And although it seems like a Mike, right? Let's just call it the Debo Williams linebacker. How shall we? That would be fine. I'm assuming Justin Okoronkwo is going to be opposite him. I'm assuming Sean Murphy will be over there too. I like Justin better than Sean. Both are former Alabama linebackers. Not a bad deal that Nick Saban recruited to Alabama, so they probably can play. There's something in there. Murphy actually, played pretty well at Florida State when he wasn't hurt last year. But Justin Okoronkwo is just a freaky athlete. I think South Con is very fortunate he got in the transfer portal, because he had a big future in Tuscaloosa too. This is a guy that most of the folks around the program are speaking very highly of. And so I'm going to say tier A for Justin, should start. Shoot me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, that means a really good player has beaten him out, or he wasn't as good as we thought. But should start tier A. Rasul Faison. It's another position we broke down last week. I don't know who's going to start at running back. I'm sticking by that. I don't think it's a hard and fast thing. And honestly, if I poll some of you guys looking in the comments on YouTube, by the way, subscribe to this page, and look at some of the comments on thebigspur.com where I've asked the question, there's a debate, a healthy debate about it, but you get 4 different answers. And then don't sleep on this guy. So, and I'm not saying that fan favorites are always the ones that win, or my favorites are the ones that start. I mean, coaches have their own minds, and players do their own things in practice and stuff, and it all goes into determining that. But I think it's open up. I think it's pretty consensus. This running back job's wide open. So with that, I'm going to go B. Should be in the 2 deep. Now I could do tier C for Faison, but I like him, and so I think when it all shakes out, he'll be one of the top 2. I mean, you could make like I said, a strong argument for C on him. That would be a little bolder though of me. I don't think he's a player that they brought in and said, you're a lock to start for us. But I do think he's a really good player, and I think he could start. There, and I didn't do a could start because, that's could start. Let's just go, should start. Could be in the two deep. Should start. Should be in the two deep. Could be in the two deep. Should be in the two deep. Tier B for Rasul Faison. Boaz Stanley is our third tier A. Here I told you there weren't going to be a lot of tier A's, so it kind of shows you there's not a lot left. I'm going to go. I've heard enough about him. If you get a chance, go listen to John Strickland. The last 2 out of the last 3 interviews he's had on Talking Ball with Jamie on the morning show. That's on our YouTube page. You can get the standalone interview. He's got a connection to Stanley's coach, and then you kind of look around at what else has been said about him and the need for a center. I just think he's starting. It feels that way, and the last offensive lineman that came in through the transfer portal that everybody was fired up about universally, and you had some of our guests and experts and people I interact with talking to their former coaches, was Torricelli Simpkins. And you saw Torricelli in summer. I saw him at the spring game last year, and I was like, holy cow. And he looks the part, doesn't he? I was like, who is that? That's Torricelli Simpkins. Oh, my God. And he played really well, and he probably will get drafted. He's at least one of the ones that's gotten invited to the combine, according to his social media. So with Boaz Stanley, he's a player that, from what I've heard, has gotten a lot better since he left high school, was really good at Troy, older player, leader, naturally strong. Gamecocks should, have their center with him coming to Columbia. And the sneaky in the middle of the night, nobody knew he was visiting. All of a sudden he commits. Level of his portal recruitment was interesting. From Oconee County, Georgia, over near Athens initially. Boaz Stanley, tier A. Miles Norwood, who I mentioned earlier, going to throw him in tier B. Should be in the two deep. You look at corner, it kind of sets up pretty nice. Should be in the two deep. Miles Norwood, very fast player, got him from Ball State, originally from St. Louis. Is a player that's been to a lot of different schools, but has always been really good. So that's one of those things. So hopefully he gets there. He's really fast and is a player that Torian Gray and those guys identified early. And I think that there's something to be said for that. They're pretty good at that. So Miles Norwood, tier B. Should be in the two deep. How about that? Going on down the list, Rodney Newsom Jr. And I tell you this, Newsom, as far as he's the offensive guard that they took from Western Kentucky, very athletic player from Memphis originally. He is a player that they're fired, a little bit better than you think. I don't know. I said before, I'd be a little disappointed if, some of these guys that were in that recruiting class a couple of years ago are going into their third year with the program and aren't starting. And you keep bringing portal guys in to start on the offensive line. I'd like for one of them to start. So for me, Newsom is tier B. But I will caution everybody and say there's just a lot of good feedback about him. Now, a lot of that's probably athletically. I mean, they obviously checked out the film and things like that from when he was at Western Kentucky. However, it's his athleticism that really stands out. Big athletic kid, about 6'4", 300, 305, something like that. So tier B could be in the two deep. It should be. Sorry. Could. SSC. For Rodney Newsom Jr. Aaron Nolan, tier C, obviously. I would go tier B, should be in the two deep, but you just never know. Dante Reno may come a million miles and has a lot of experience in the program and ends up being the number 2 guy. This is going to be something that I think people will ask about, because they always ask about quarterbacks, which is fine because that's what everybody wants to know about. But all preseason, you're going to hear, have you decided who the backup quarterback's going to be yet behind Lenore Sellers? And it'll be Aaron Noland, it'll be Dante Reno, it'll be Cutter Woods, one of those three. Um, my money would be on Noland. I think he's the favorite to win it. But you just never know. Dante's the same age. I mean, so they'll battle it out. Competition is good. So I'm going to sneak in a tier C with him, and say, uh, you know, could be in the two deep. Could be. I'll probably regret that one because I pretty much I haven't. I've written it in pencil that he's going to be the backup quarterback. So there we go. But there is going to be a competition, and I don't like I said, I'm not a Dante Reno hater. I think Dante is still right there, could still get in the mix. He's still got an arm. There's just been a limited sample size with him. And I think people still are remembering the All-Star game out of high school where he struggled. Um, and that's kind of in their mind a little bit, but so we'll see. So out of deference to the other quarterbacks, Cutter Woods, Dante Reno, I would say tier C. Sean Murphy, I talked about him earlier, another linebacker. Tier B in him should be in the two deep. I can't imagine he's not in the two deep. They only play two linebackers, but he's going to be in the mix somewhere. Older player, 6'3", 230, was productive when healthy at Florida State last year. Just got out of the dumpster fire and went on to new and better things at South Carolina. I think this guy he's got talent, and I'm curious to see what happens when he's healthy and all that good stuff. So that's good. Tier B for him. Gabriel Brownlow Dendy, tier B. Should be in the two deep. Should. I think that he will find new life, much like Monkel Goodwine, and they're excited about him. And so I can't imagine him not being in the two deep. Jordan Dingle. Now, this is interesting because sometimes South Carolina starts two tight ends and they'll play double tights or they'll have an H back or whatever. So how do you really determine the two deep? So like in my mind, I would say Michael Smith and Brady Hunt are your probably co-starters depending on what the first formation is next year. Michael Smith actually started some this year, started the first game. But how do you divide those one and two? That's tough. How do you define the two deep? I must define it like it looks on paper, where Smith one, Hunt two. Even though they both may play, there's maybe some where Hunt starts. So for that reason, Dingle's a tier C. Because it could be in the two deep. I just maybe he starts. I don't know. He's got hands and athleticism and playmaking ability. I don't know what happened at Kentucky as far as getting him the ball, him not playing. Maybe he was a little disgruntled, but he's got new life back in his home state, the state he was born, in South Carolina. And we'll see. I think he's got enough talent to be very productive this year. In help replace Josh Simon. But I also think the world of Michael Smith, and I also think Brady Hunt's getting better. Unfortunately, he had an injury at the end of last year. So Dingle's got to be in C. But I will say I think he's got some upside. So Nick Sharp, offensive guard from Wake Forest. And again, are all three players from the portal on offensive line going to start again? I mean, you gotta put Big Tree somewhere. These offensive line's fascinating to me, folks, for next season as far as how it all shakes out. And I hope we're not seeing three portal starters again. And that really has nothing to do with how good the O line will be or not. I'd be a little concerned about player development. Of course, there are nagging injuries. I absolutely believe Big Tree needs to be on the field. He's one of the top 5 offensive linemen. No matter how you structure it, no matter where you put him, He needs to be on the field. And that's a big question. The big question about Big Tree, where is he going to play? Will they move him inside? Will they leave him at tackle? If so, do they move him to right? I mean, there's all kinds of questions about Big Tree, but that also impacts Nick Sharp. Love Nick Sharp. Love him as a player, 330 pounds, old school throwback mauler type. Yes, give me more of these. From Gastonia, North Carolina. I'm going to go with tier B on him. To me, he and Newsom are kind of the same type of deal. To where they should be in the should be in the two deep, at least in the two deep. Now, should start. I wouldn't say should, but we don't have a could start because that's lame, as we talked about. So there you go. Tier B for Nick Sharp. Jalen Brown, I'm going to go with tier C for him because he's still young. He'll be a redshirt freshman. Again, they just like a D tackle, they rotate those guys. And so I'm sure he'll be in the rotation somewhere if healthy. As far as being in the actual two deep, could be tier C for right now. Now, he also could be a starter. There's a large delta when you talk about Jalen Brown, the defensive end from Missouri that they got out of the portal. So there you go. You got a couple of A's and some C's smattered in there and some B's. It's a good portal class. I don't know that they're necessarily finished. I'm leaning towards maybe one, maybe two after spring. There could be some post-spring departures, as there always normally is, but we'll see. Beamer has mentioned that Carolina's at like 84. You can only have 85. Hale has counted it up on thebigspur.com, and it's 84 or something, 85. So room with roster limitations, that's a thing. So that's good. That's good to know that they're under by one in case somebody really good pops up. They've also, NIL wise, I think they'll be able to rock it. So as far as paying for whatever player pops up, there's not, like I said, there's not like a finite amount of, the budget's busted as far as NIL goes for football. They've done a pretty good job there, but again, they're not going to overpay. It's just not going to happen at South Carolina. But overall, this portal class, I think, is ranked somewhere in the top 12 to 13 by most people that do the rankings. South Carolina had a bunch of players in the top 300, according to 24/7 Sports. I'll say it again: portal rankings are evolving. They're almost so different. They sort of need a different type of system outside of stars. Stars are easy for everybody to understand. And they're saying JC is certainly a hell of a lot easier than whatever tiers you were just talking about. Yeah, but I think you have to ask yourself sometimes with the star, is that the best way to do it? When you're talking about football players that are kind of on a journey, there's a difference between a vacation where you're evaluating your vacation, right? Let's say you go to the Bahamas. Oh, I'm not going to worry so much about the airport. God, some of those airports, airports these days. Another list of things that are terrible. How about that? Yeah, I'm not going to talk much about the airport. Or I hope they have a nice flight, nice time. But really, what matters is the destination. That's star ratings because that's how, as an industry for years, we've determined is by it kind of terminates at the NFL draft. Yeah, that's why I always laugh at the every year around the Super Bowl. There's this only three starters on these teams for 5 stars. Yeah, it's probably pretty common. And starting in a Super Bowl doesn't make you one of the best players by comparison. If you're doing a long-term projection in your class, I mean, a lot of the bad teams always draft high. So it's almost better that you don't go to a Super Bowl winning team at times if you're trying to do that. But that's why we terminated at the draft. It's like you can't really go any further. You start talking about this high school guy can be all pro one day. That's there are too many bumps in the road. And so what you're not doing is you're not looking at the Bahamas and writing a review. You're following the journey, right? And evaluating the progress within the journey and making projections on where the journey ultimately will lead. That's hard, right? But when you start talking about, stars, stars skip right to the destination. That's what they're supposed to mean. So, uh, when you're talking about where are you at, how valuable are you going to be from the transfer portal to your team? What kind of results will you have immediately? The tier system I just talked about, because you start talking about roster, who's on the roster, what jobs open, how good are you compared to the others that they have on the roster. So it almost needs to be, based a little bit more on instant impact. One of the biggest myths ever out there, it's completely wrong because people say it. Well, a 5-star should be starting by his second year. No, that's not how anybody in the business has ever seen it. A 5-star should be, in theory, a top 32 pick, first rounder. That's why they're limited. They first round potential. And there's no time. As long as you get it done, but as long as you get to the termination point, there's nothing that follows that progression. But with the portal and trying to evaluate these guys and stuff, that's what you're doing is following the progression. So I don't know. I think that there almost needs to be another system for that feeds in and kind of formulates part of the team rankings with recruiting and all that. But the industry's not there yet, and they kind of do it the old way. South Carolina finished with a top 15 portal class. I don't know what that means. I do know it's a solid group with a lot of good players that are going to help the Gamecocks in the fall. Hopefully, you never know, but hopefully, you pray that this isn't a bad batch of portal players, right? That would not be good. That would not be good. So anyway, I think that this is you know not a ton of surefire starters. Like I said, Cisse, Boaz, Stanley, and Justin Okoronkwo are my picks for should start tier A. But a lot of players that could start, and a lot of players that will most likely be in the two deep. There's no could start, by the way, but if you're in the two deep, should be in the two deep. So I like the group. I really do. I think Shane Beamer and his staff did a really good job. And like I said, may not be done yet. So there are your portal transfer tiers. I'll go over them one more time. Brandon C said Justin Okoronkwo, Boaz Stanley, Justin Boaz. Wow. JC. Tier A. Tier B, Rasul Faison, Miles Norwood, Rodney Newsom Jr., Sean Murphy, Gabriel Brownlow Dindy, Nick Sharp. Tier C, Devontae Miles, Aaron Noland, Jordan Dingle, and Jalen Brown. Now, look, Jalen Brown and Aaron Noland, if you're like, again, back to the ranking thing, if you're just ranking them and projecting them, they're going to be really high, right? Because of the runway and upside. But they're young, so they're tier C as far as, impact goes. Should be in the two deep. So, or no, sorry, could be in the two deep. This may have been a huge mistake doing this. It's poor folks out there. It's confusing. Again, all right, so I'll go back through it. Tier A is could start. Tier B is should be. No, I'm sorry. Back up. Tier A is should start. Tier B is should be in the two deep. Tier C is could be in the two deep. Again, Tier A should start. Tier B should be in the two deep. Tier C could be in the two deep when it comes to the transfer portal rankings. I hope this episode wasn't a complete disaster. It probably was a much better article, right? You look back on it. Basketball, men's. Tough to talk about. Loss at Kentucky. We briefly mentioned it yesterday on the show. The women's team lost. 57-game SEC regular season win streak is over. Go check out, if you're a women's basketball fan, Debbie Antonelli's interview from yesterday, where she kind of digs into the sport from the morning show. The morning show will be along later today. Alex Jones, the pride of Hampton County from thebigspur.com, is our standing Tuesday guest. Don't forget our extravaganza for opening day. We will do it yet again. 4 hours. Bradford and I think Pro Phil, will be live from the press box at Founders Park. I'll be along, and then a host of guests: Paul Maneri, Ray Tanner, Stuart Lake, Monty Lee, all the baseball folks that you know and love. We love college baseball around here and always do that on opening day. So it should be a lot of fun, just like last year. So the whole crew is getting back together for a 4-hour tour when it comes to Gamecock baseball. Also, download the Chief Sports app. Check out thebigspur.com and all that good stuff. This is Big Coffee with JC Shurburtt. Hope everyone has a fantastic Tuesday. And hope I didn't confuse you guys too much with the tears with the portal class in this episode. I'll be back tomorrow morning and be back later today on the show. Holla at you soon.